What's going on? My name is Zach Allard, and welcome to my podcast. Full disclosure, it does not have a name yet. We're working on that, and by the time that this airs, it's going to have some kind of name. I am a 7-year Army veteran, just got out back in February. I served 6 years with 75th Ranger Regiment, 1st Ranger Battalion specifically, and I did 6 overseas deployments, 3 to Afghanistan, 2 to Iraq, 1 to Syria. My intention for this podcast is for it to not be another vet bro type podcast. My Army background and experience was an important part of shaping who I am today, but I'm not going to let it be the only thing that defines me or let it be the pinnacle of my accomplishments as a man. And that's what this podcast is going to be about. It's going to be about documenting kind of my growth and my achievements post-military, as well as kind of showing the transition process from getting out to becoming someone else who is successful outside, to kind of show my brothers in Ranger Regiment and to anyone else in the Army, and then just to men in general, that you can leave something that you love dearly and still find success after it, regardless of what the retention NCOs are going to be telling you when you try and tell them that you're not coming back. Aside from being a Ranger my entire life, for the most part, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've wanted to work for myself and to make my own way in life. Back in 5th grade, I think it was, our teacher, I don't remember her name, but at the end of the year, she would have her class, the 5th grade class, do this activity or this project called Box Vegas, where you'd get a giant refrigerator box and you and a partner would partner up and paint it out and make a little storefront and develop some kind of product and sell that product to the other 5th graders throughout the week of Box Vegas. And it was me and my friend Jake, and our product was these little aliens that we made out of these like pom-pom balls, like the little tiny like cotton type looking balls, and we'd glue eyes on them and make them these little like desktop decorations, if you will. And I don't remember how well we did. I don't think we did too poorly. I think we did pretty well, but that doesn't really matter because that's kind of what spawned my initial interest in entrepreneurship and working for myself and running my own business. So very early on, that's kind of something that I wanted to do aside from joining the Army and getting into a special operations unit. So one of the things that I've learned in my journey as an entrepreneur, let me back up. I also currently am running a business called Rockwell Design. Some of you might be coming here from there. I'm planning on promoting this podcast on that page a little bit. Rockwell Designs is a small tactical gear manufacturing company run solely by me. I do the designs myself. I do the sewing myself, fulfillment, marketing, all of it, which isn't the most fun in the world, but it is very rewarding. I started that about 2 years ago after my 2020 deployment to Afghanistan. I had a lot of downtime post-deployment because of, the plague, and they made us quarantine for 2 weeks after we got back from Afghanistan and then 2 weeks after our block leave. So I had about a month off of doing anything Army related aside from keeping myself in shape. And going into those quarantines, I knew that I was going to have that time, and while I was on deployment, I was thinking of ways that I could capitalize on it. And on one of the computers we had, I found some, I'm going to save this story for another time. We'll talk about Rockwell Designs in a full podcast talking about it. Long story short, I started the business while I was on quarantine. I had no idea how to sew. I had no idea how to design tactical gear whatsoever, aside from being an end user myself. And I started and launched Rockwell Designs with about $2,000 in startup capital. About $1,000 of that went to my sewing machine, and another $1,000 into buying Cordura and webbing and elastic to make these rigs that I had drawn up on deployment. And it did pretty well. I mean, it did better than I thought it was going to. I sold my AK series pretty quickly, and I sold my 308 series a few months after. Sold out, rather. And that was kind of a really cool turning point for me, because it's like, okay, people like what I'm doing. This is feasible to make money on the internet. I believe that you know, you should learn how to make money on the internet somehow, because it is such a driving force for good as well as for evil. I mean, it depends on what you're using it for, but you should learn how to make something or learn a skill that you can market yourself with on the internet. That's a tangent. We're not going to go there. So one of the things that I've learned in my roughly 2 years, it's almost 2 years exactly now too, from the start of Rockwell Designs, is you can't wait for the perfect conditions to start something. If you wait for perfect conditions, they're never going to come. There's no such thing as perfect conditions. You should figure out a relative and a rough plan and then violently execute on that plan. I use violently, and then violently execute on that plan. So that's what I did when I was going to start a business. I knew that if I got home and I let myself, lounge around and hang out with the homies too much, then I was not going to start this business. So I forced myself to sit down and figure out how to run a sewing machine. I'd never seen one, I've seen one, but I've never touched one before in my life. They're kind of terrifying if you've never actually used one. You're always worried about getting your finger caught in the needle and all kinds of bad stuff that could happen. But I taught myself how to sew. I drew up these patterns, made the patterns, and then went to work mass producing these rigs. I didn't really think too much about the marketing. I was like, I have this idea and we're just going to see if it works. I knew that AKs were becoming a more popular rifle in the U.S. due to their ammo availability at the time during the plague. More and more people were getting into the Kalashnikov series, so I saw an opportunity there, and I knew that I had to action it quickly to make money off of it. And that's what I did, and it's grown to about almost 3,000 followers. I've probably sewn close to 150 or probably more chest rigs just this year alone, roughly about 20 a month. So if you do the math, it's about 160, not counting some of the other smaller projects like my SMG rigs. And it's a proven concept. I have them in about 4 or 5 different patterns now that I've released, and we've got a release coming actually this Friday with some 308 and some AK Ranger green rigs. So be on the lookout for that. I'm planning on getting this podcast up tonight. It's Monday, either tonight or tomorrow night on Tuesday. Another key example is this podcast that I'm starting. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have a mic, I've got a ring light and a stand and some audio mixing software and this black tablecloth, and that is the entirety of my planning for right now. This podcast is going to be something I'm going to try and do 1 episode a week. I have no idea, again, what I'm doing, what I'm going to talk about every single week, but I'm going to figure it out along the way, and that taking that first step is the first step to securing success, because the first step is always going to be the hardest, and then it's just a matter of building momentum and then maintaining momentum. I'm going to talk about another venture that I'm involved in currently. It's a hot button topic a little bit out on the realm of the internet right now is Hustlers University. And we'll talk a little bit about Hustlers University and Andrew Tate. So I joined Hustlers University back in May, end of May, beginning of June. And so far, I've only been really involved in the copywriting campus. I know that Andrew, who is the Andrew Bass, is one of the copywriting professors, and he just relaunched the system Andrew Bass is one of the copywriting professors, and I know that he just relaunched the sprints or the initial instructions and turned it into a boot camp. So I've been in there for about 2 months. I've gone through the old beginner sprints and the old intermediate, I guess old now intermediate sprints, and I have one client that I'm currently doing work for, as well as a couple lined up to take sales calls, and hopefully going to sign those guys. I'm going to talk a little bit as to why people think that Hustlers University is a scam. And I think the biggest reason was because of the affiliate campus, which is now shut down. Basically, you were getting, in the affiliate campus, you were getting taught to push Tate content, Andrew Tate content, to drive people to sign up for Hustlers University, in which case you'd get a small kickback. And people saw that and heard that, and they're like, it's a pyramid scheme, which it's not really. It sounds like it is, but it's just like any other affiliate program where you're going to get a kickback on revenue share per se. So that's reason number one why people thought it was a scam. And then the other one is it's kind of touted as a get rich quick kind of program, which it's good for marketing. But then you get a lot of immature dudes in there who think that, oh, I'm just going to, rush through these lessons, for example, in copywriting, and then mass bombard a bunch of potential prospects and think that I'm going to get them on retainer on my first sales call. That's just not the case. You have to take time to develop the skills, and you have to take time to really do good outreach and actually have something of value to offer them. So 3 things that I think you need to have to be successful in Hustlers University. Number 1 is you need to practice at whatever you're learning. If you just sit there and watch and consume the content and procrastinate, this goes back into what I was talking about earlier, is don't wait for perfect conditions. Start taking action on the stuff that you are learning. I think that Andrew does a really good job in the copywriting campus of having practical exercises that you can do immediately after learning a concept. So number 2 is, this is specifically for copywriting, is be creative in how you do your outreach. There's about 100,000 dudes inside the copywriting campus itself. I don't know the exact number right now, but it's a lot. So if you're going after low-hanging fruit, like, your generic, fitness influencers on Instagram, they've already been bombarded probably about 100 times by Hustlers University students. I had several people reply to my outreach inquiring what kind of program was teaching this, because they'd been getting about 10 emails a day with the same kind of vibe, and they were wondering what the hell was going on. And then, so be creative when you do your outreach. 3 is just don't quit. Like, you just keep showing up and you keep putting in effort and you keep committing yourself to learning and doing the deep work every single day. Like, you will get a client. You will get results from Hustlers University, I promise, because that's what I did. And I know that I didn't put as much work in as I probably should have to land my first client. I kind of lucked out, which made me realize, okay, like, I actually need to double down on my efforts and my learning here. So as soon as I finish recording this and getting it edited and uploaded, I'm hopping right back in and starting the beginner's boot camp, and hopefully I'll see some of you inside. I think that's really about it that I'm gonna cover today. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet and punchy. This is my second time recording this. My first time, I knew that I was rambling much too long and using a lot of ums and ahs. I feel like I've done a little better on this one. So as far as frequency of this podcast, my plan is right now to do at least one a week getting started. And then once I get a little bit more established, get a little bit more traction, I'm going to start trying to move to twice a week. I've got access to some pretty cool people. A lot of them are still active duty right now, so I don't know how they're going to feel about maybe coming on and talking about, more Ranger specific kind of stuff. But that's something that I'm going to try and get for you guys, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are interested in joining the Army, and there's a decent amount of information out there on how to get into Ranger Regiment, but a lot of it is kind of sanitized and from like bigger name influencers like Matt Best and like the soft rep guys, and I can't remember who else is out there that kind of talks about Ranger Regiment, but there's not a lot of us out there. I'm going to do it in a way that's not. I'm going to do my best to keep it not like bro-vetty, if that makes sense. I'm going to try and just give genuine information from dudes who've been in at varying levels, from private to, maybe squad leader and above. I'm going to try and maybe get a squad leader or two in here and talk about, expectations and like kind of how to get through RASP and the mindset you need to have to exceed the standard and to excel in Ranger Regiment if that's something that you want. And in Ranger School as well. We'll talk Ranger School probably a little bit. So that is kind of one of the tertiary goals of this podcast. The other goal is kind of a documentation of myself and of my journey that I'm on. I'm on the path to, be successful. I know that's like I have goals in my mind that I want to achieve, and I'm kind of bringing the world along for a ride, even if it's only going to be a few people at the beginning. That's okay. Everything starts small. The acorn grows into the oak tree, so we got to start somewhere, and that's what this is. Another reason I'm doing this podcast is because there can never be too many voices out there pushing for positive masculinity and for masculine reform, and promoting manly virtue and values. There's way too much negative influence out there and femme-centric influence out there. And one of the podcasts that I listen to, one of the few that I do actually listen to, is called Blood and Rain. And Arthur, the main guy behind the podcast, he talks about in one of his podcasts how that we need to achieve dominance by, I'm completely butchering this quote, but we need to achieve dominance by complete saturation and saturating the market, if you will, with our ideals, in that I'm going to be able to reach a portion of the market that some people might not be. And so it's my duty as a man, and my duty as someone who wants to bring about a renaissance of man, if you will. Based on my experiences, I feel like that I can bring a unique perspective to things. I've done things that many men will never get the chance to do, and I want to be able to provide commentary and kind of analysis and voice my opinions and just kind of share like the things that I've been through, and hopefully it helps someone out there. I'm gonna try my best not to be bro-vitty or act, super badass. I'm just gonna try and be authentically me, and hopefully y'all come along for the ride. That'll wrap it up, I think. So till next time, have a good one.